Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we go into stories in detail, here's a look at the headlines for tonight.
President Maithripala Sirisena extended a warm welcome in Pakistan. 6 bilateral agreements inked. Strict measures will be taken against SLFP seniors who do not comply with party discipline. A warning from the former president Chandrika Kumaratunga.
මහින්දරත් ඕනේ නම් පක්ෂයට ඇවිල්ලා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඔළුව නමාගෙන වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන්. බැරි නම් යන්න පුළුවන්.
Body of the woman reported missing in Kotagatana Kahawata, discovered in a waterway near her home. Sub-Inspector of Police murdered in Bandaragama. 44 Sri Lankan nationals stranded in Yemen evacuated.
President Maithripala Sirisena, who is on a 2-day state visit to Pakistan, met with Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif today. Newsfirst Rinas Mohammed, who is in Islamabad, stated that 6 bilateral MOUs and agreements were signed today.
Sri Lanka Janadipati Maithripala Sirisena Mahatage.
Today is the most significant day of President Maithripala Sirisena's visit to Pakistan. Several events are to take place in Pakistan today. A special ceremony was held this morning at the Prime Minister's residence to welcome the President and the Sri Lankan delegation.
An official ceremony was organised in Islamabad in the office of the Prime Minister in lieu of the Sri Lankan President's visit. With the completion of the military guard of honour, the Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and the visiting President introduced their respective officials. The bilateral talks between the leaders of the two countries began subsequently. According to our correspondent, much attention was focused on the strengthening of bilateral ties between the two countries. The two leaders also issued a joint press statement.
We need to further enhance tourism and people-to-people contacts. The academic and tourism communities will undertake joint research programs on our ancient connections. We can draw strength and inspiration from the warmth of our engagement and the depth of understanding that this visit has generated for charting a more dynamic course in our relationship. I have invited Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to undertake a visit to Sri Lanka. This would no doubt further cement our strong friendship. I thank you.
We focused on the need for regular political exchanges between Pakistan and Sri Lanka, including high-level visits. Parliamentary visits would further strengthen the relations. Sri Lanka enjoys the special position of being the first country with which Pakistan signed a free trade agreement in August 2002. The present volume of trade does not reflect the true potential. We agreed to reinvigorate our effort to realize the goal of achieving $1 billion bilateral trade in the shortest possible time.
4 MOUs and 2 agreements were signed between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. The agreement on cooperation against illicit trafficking in narcotics drugs, psychotropic substances and their chemical precursors between the two countries was of significance. MOUs were signed in the field of atomic energy, sports, disaster management and tourism. Our correspondent added that an academic cooperation agreement on exchange and collaboration between the National Defence University of Pakistan and the Lakshman Kadirgam Institute of International Relations and Strategic Studies of Sri Lanka was also signed. President Sirisena also held meetings with Sharif and the National Security and International Relations Advisor of Pakistan, Sartaj Aziz.
The body of the mother of three who was reported missing in the Kotaketana area in Kahavatta, Ratnapura was found this evening. Her body was discovered in a waterway located close to her residence.
Chandrani Swaranilata, aged 39, was a mother of three and a resident of Kotaketana, Kahavatta. She was reported missing from her residence early last morning. Her husband was attending a funeral last night while she had stayed behind at her residence with her 17-year-old second child. The husband, giving a statement to the police, had said that when he returned home at around 1:30 a.m., she was not to be found anywhere. He added that the front door of the kitchen was wide open. Police investigations commenced last evening. However, no information came to light with regard to her disappearance. Thereby, a search operation was carried out with the assistance of the Navy, where abandoned mines and hazardous wells in the area were thoroughly searched. It was not until 2:30 this afternoon that the body of the mother of three was discovered in a waterway located in close proximity to her house.
The body of the woman who was reported missing since last morning was discovered lodged in the base of a tree in the Kotaketana Canal. It must be mentioned that her house is located 100 meters away from this location, while the Kotaketana main road is on the other side. Furthermore, the body of the victim is 100 meters away from the Kotaketana police checkpoint, while 500 meters away is a base erected by the Special Task Force. The body was found in the middle of this location. With much effort, the Police Special Task Force, together with the Navy and the police, were able to find the body at the Kotaketana Canal, only to add another chapter of tears.
The magisterial inquest was carried out by the acting magistrate of Palmadula, Sarath Vijayagunavardhana. Later, the body was transferred to the Ratnapura General Hospital for the post-mortem examination.
The body of the victim was not clothed when she was discovered. We will be carrying out further investigations in order to apprehend the perpetrators. Apart from the Kahavatta police, investigations have been handed over to the Colombo Crimes Division.
12 women killed in the Kahavatta area in Ratnapura since April 2011. Many of the victims were assaulted prior to their murder. Genitech Sri Lanka presented evidence to the Supreme Court of Colombo stating that 6 of these murders were carried out by one suspect. The evidence was presented in a court case relating to the murder of an 18-year-old female and her mother on the 31st of January 2012. Under the guidance of Attorney-at-Law Darshan Kuruppu, Genitech Sri Lanka presented evidence in relation to the murders in a hearing convened by Colombo High Court Judge Devika Thenakon on the 11th of last month. Genitech Sri Lanka submitted that DNA testing in 4 instances where 6 women were killed had revealed that the suspect in each of these murders had the same DNA. However, Genitech added that the DNA from the suspects who were arrested did not match with the DNA they had unearthed. The Attorney General had already initiated legal action against the criminals. Hearings are underway in court.
A sub-inspector who was attached to the Bandaragama police station was hacked to death last night. Following the magisterial inquest carried out by part of the magistrate Ruchita Valivatta, orders were issued to hand over investigations to the Criminal Investigations Department.
The victim is a sub-inspector of the police and a resident of Valana, Bekkagama in Panadura. The SI SRWW Palyawadana was murdered in his residence while he was asleep. Police said that the incident was uncovered following a phone call made by the victim's wife.
At around 4:45 or 5 am this morning, I was told that Mr. Palyawadana was feeling unwell and that he had to be taken to the hospital. When I went into the bedroom, I noticed that the mosquito net was pulled aside, and then when I got closer to examine him, I spotted blood around his neck. He had passed away by then. It was after this that the police arrived.
The police said that a laceration a few inches deep was to be seen on the victim's neck. Meanwhile, a dagger suspected to have been left behind by the murderers was discovered during preliminary police investigations from a field in close proximity to the victim's house. The police say that the dagger might have been left behind at that location to mislead the investigations. In addition to this, police personnel also found blood stains on a tree in the backyard of the murdered sub-inspector's house.
මේ ඝාතනයේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් සිදු කෙරුණු මහේස්ත්‍රාත් පරීක්ෂණයේදී
Following the magisterial inquest, the magistrate ordered that the investigation into the murder be handed over to the Criminal Investigations Department. The magistrate also ordered that a report on the investigation be submitted to court immediately. Police noted that police dogs had not gone any further than 50 meters away from the house.
News First වෙනුවෙන් මම මංජුල ප්‍රේමරත්න පානදුර වලාන ප්‍රදේශයේ සිට.
The 56-year-old sub-inspector is a father of two. His wife runs a retail outlet.
There was no issue, nothing significant or noted by us. No issues with the police nor the public. He was always on good terms with anyone. I was shocked to hear the news of his murder.
The magistrate also issued orders that the body of the deceased sub-inspector be handed over to his relatives after the JMO examination.
9 people, including an 8-month-old infant, have been killed and 21 others injured in road accidents that occurred over the past 24 hours.
One of the accidents involving a lorry and a three-wheeler occurred in the Kurichan-Kulama area in Mundalama on the Colombo-Putlam main road. Our reporters say that the three-wheeler was carrying a family that was returning home after dropping off a family member at the Katunaka airport. 5 people, including 2 small children, were travelling in the three-wheeler at the time of the collision. The driver of the three-wheeler, a woman and an 8-month-old infant were killed in the accident. Our reporters say that the deceased infant's twin brother and their mother were injured in the accident and have been hospitalized. A spokesperson said the infant's condition is critical. The father was travelling abroad for employment. A three-wheeler collided with a bus last night in Marvila on the Colombo-Chilao main road. 2 young men travelling in the three-wheeler were killed in the accident, while 2 others have been hospitalized with injuries. Our reporters say the victims are residents of Toduava in Mahawara. An accident occurred last night near the 10th mile post in Heberava, Mahiyangane when a pickup truck veered off the road. A 19-year-old boy was killed in the accident, while 3 people, including the chairman, have been hospitalized. Our reporters say the pickup truck had collided with a nearby electricity post. 10 children were injured when a school bus collided with a pickup truck near the 8-mile post in Thalangama early this morning. The school bus was carrying a group of students on a field trip from Panadura to Colombo, while the driver of the pickup truck, who sustained serious injuries, was admitted to the National Hospital in Colombo. The driver of the bus had been placed under arrest.
A woman from Mihintale in Anuradhapura has committed suicide by jumping into a well along with her son.
The woman, who is a resident of Doramadalava in Mihintale, had jumped into this agrarian well with her infant son this morning. Police stated that it is suspected that the suicide was the result of a domestic dispute. Meanwhile, the police and area residents intervened in recovering the bodies of the victims. The police added that the deceased mother and son were pronounced dead following the recovery of their bodies. The suicide victim, Helesika Pavitrani, was 22 at the time of her demise, while her son was 1.5 years old.
44 Sri Lankan nationals stranded amid the crisis in Yemen are being evacuated to Djibouti in Africa on board a Chinese ship. Speaking to Newsfirst, Ren Fei-Xiang, the chargé d'affaires of the Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka, confirmed that the Sri Lankans were safely on board the ship and en route to Djibouti.
At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Chinese naval frigate Lingyi carried 44 Sri Lankans and 24 Chinese, including Chinese ambassador to Yemen, left the seaport of Hodate, heading for Djibouti. In about 6 to 8 hours, they will arrive at Djibouti safely, and we are happy to assist our Sri Lankan friends and their family members and welcome them back home from the war zone before the Sinhalese and Tamil New Year. Beijing coordinates with their embassy in Sri Lanka, Djibouti, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen to make it possible, stemming from humanitarian concern as well as friendship between our two countries, where we are very happy that in time needed we offer our help.
The considering of petitions filed over the draft 19th Amendment to the Constitution concluded at the Supreme Court today. The Speaker will be informed of the Court's determination in the near future.
"19 petitioners and intervening petitioners were present when the hearing was taken up at the Supreme Court today. The petitions were considered by a 3-judge bench, including Chief Justice K. Sripavan and Justice Chandra Ekanayaka and Priyasad Depp. Time was also allocated for the Attorney General to respond following submissions made by the petitioners and the interveners. Making submissions in court, Attorney General, President's Counsel, Yuanjan Vijaytilaka said that the 19th Amendment will maintain the President as the head of the executive. The Attorney General also pointed out that the President would seek the advice of the Prime Minister only in the capacity of an advisor. He also added that if the President and the Prime Minister do not reach a common consensus, it would be then referred to the Parliament in order to reach a decision. He argued that a referendum is not essential for such an amendment.
Meanwhile, the SLFP and JHU expressed their protest against the proposed 19th Amendment to the Constitution.
The opposition leader's office was sent a 12-page draft of even more amendments from the office of the leader of the House, which means this is the documentation that will enact the bill pertaining to the Constitution. This contravenes Article 121 of the Constitution, because whatever that is presented in Parliament should be presented in its fullest form. It is not legal to present an amendment form of a bill to the Supreme Court through the Attorney General or through any other means. We request an immediate halt to efforts made to take this bill up for debate in Parliament on the 9th and the 10th. We will take a decision on this after convening a party leaders meeting once the verdict granted by the Supreme Court is announced by the Speaker of the House. Presenting a draft bill in Cabinet and presenting amendments to the Supreme Court is what the President can do. But that was done by the Prime Minister. This has to be done in the capacity of a state leader. This is contradictory in its entirety. They have thrown sand in the people's eyes by failing to gazette this.
This is all that is given to President Maithripala Sirisena by the newly proposed amendment to the Constitution by the Prime Minister. He will act in the capacity of the leader of the executive branch, military chief and leader of the state. I will tell you that this was taken without a single change. Ranil Wickremesinghe may con the UNP but not us. In a nutshell, this is the copy of the 1972 Constitution. This goes against the people's mandate. The decision as to whether the Parliament should be dissolved on the 23rd of April or on the 25th will be taken after the amendment to the Constitution. This amendment is definitely one that will change the current electoral system. This is the week that will decide the next decade of the country. This will also be the week that will decide the future of the Prime Minister in terms of politics. He should keep that in mind. We will do all we can to defeat the mentioned conspirators.
Former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga says the President will soon take a decision on those who are not acting in line with the discipline of the SLFP. The former President made this remark addressing SLFP activists in the Gampa district last evening.
You must remember that Ranil toppled the government and came into power when I was president. He knew that he couldn't become president through a presidential election. He knew if an impeachment was brought, the Prime Minister would automatically become president. 23 MPs were needed from our side for the UNP to obtain a two-thirds majority. The task of delivering the 23 MPs, the contract was taken up by Mahinda Rajapaksa. This is the third instance he is trying to destroy the party. Even though they dance with the people, they bring in busters or a few Pradesh Sabha members or urban councillors, you cannot destroy the party. The party is you and I. If Mahinda wants, he can join the party, bow his head and work. If he cannot, then he can leave. The president will take a decision and disciplinary actions will be taken with regard to the individuals who do not work or act in line with the discipline of the party.
Minister of Housing and Samurdhi Sajid Premadasa says that the time has come for everyone to adapt to a new political culture. He expressed these views at an event held in Okewala.
We expect to receive information and criticism from top to bottom and vice versa in order to create our policies for people-friendly decision-making. I suggest everyone adapt to the new political culture. I will hold a contest today. I would like to do more work than the SLFP minister. If we compete with each other, it will only benefit the people.
Under the Divya Savi concessionary loan facility, 197 low-income families were given loans yesterday during this event.
Dr. Palitha Kohana, the senior diplomat who served Sri Lanka as permanent representative to the UN in New York until recently, says that warmer relations with the West should not come at the expense of relations with the East. He expressed these views in an exclusive interview with Newsfirst Shamir Rasuddin.
Dr. Kohana, you were attached with the United Nations system for nearly 10 years and then you served as a diplomat in the United Nations for nearly 5.5 years. However, the thinking of the United Nations changed after the 8th of January 2015. Agreed or disagreed?
I don't think it changed. I think there was a certain warmth in the attitude. When the government changed and the foreign minister visited the United Nations, there was a noticeable warmth in the attitude. And I'm saying this without denigrating in any way the attitude towards the representatives of the previous regime.
Did the United Nations dislike the former administration?
I wouldn't say so, no. I could categorically say that there was no such dislike in the United Nations.
However, after the 8th of January, the United Nations changed its policy towards Sri Lanka. You saw the report of the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights in Geneva postponing the report as well, the publication of this particular report in question. Can the United Nations change its policies based on a different government coming into play?
I think we are mixing up two things here. You know, there are different angles to this. One is that by delaying the release, now the report could be further strengthened because there's more time to obtain other information which they may have missed earlier. On the other hand, Sri Lanka also has the opportunity now to deliver on some of the commitments that we have made on human rights violations, on accountability.
Is it an advantage or a disadvantage?
I think it is both.
Is Sri Lanka on the right track in terms of human rights? Because now the country is engulfed in this 100-day program, the 19th Amendment, so on and so forth. This is a core question of the international community. Human rights, accountability issues. Do you think Sri Lanka is on the right track?
One is that the international community as a whole has never really put Sri Lanka on the dock. The international community consists of 193 members of the United Nations. It's only a small percentage of countries, especially Western countries, who are posing these questions to Sri Lanka. International community's relationship with Sri Lanka should not be limited to a perception that we have to deal with only those few countries in the West.
Dr. Kohana, one of the allegations leveled at the previous regime is the fact that the previous regime did not have a foreign policy. You were part of the previous regime. You were appointed by the previous regime as ambassador to New York. You were also the foreign secretary for some time. How do you view this? Did Sri Lanka have a foreign policy?
I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration because we did have a foreign policy. It was based on the concept of non-alignment. We tried to develop relations with both the East and the West.
Do you think we are moving away from the East and getting close to the West?
My hope is that this is not true. It's very important to consolidate our relationships with the countries in the West, and I think that's a very important thing for us, having good relations with the East and the West. We should develop those relationships, but not at the expense of the solid relationships we've already had.
The UN resolution clearly states that intervention of the international community is needed when formulating the domestic mechanism, the domestic process in which the Sri Lankan government has promised special mandate holders should arrive in Sri Lanka and assist if the need be. How do you view this? Will this in any way affect the sovereignty of the country in the long run?
I think Sri Lanka has come under a lot of pressure over the recent years. There are many other countries in the world who are probably in a worse situation than us, but they don't come under the same pressure. So, but as a country, we need to deal with it. We can't avoid it. We can't escape it. So you can't blame the international community. We ourselves need to respond to it. We need to deal with it.
If you are invited to take up a post in the Foreign Service by the present regime, what would be your response?
In 2006, I left this job and came back to Sri Lanka because I had the opportunity to serve the country. And if I'm given that opportunity to serve the country, I will do it again.
Well, you can, of course, catch the full interview on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on MTV Sports.
In other local news, the report on the committee inquiring into the alleged treasury bond scam at the central bank is nearing completion and is to be submitted to the Prime Minister in the near future. This was confirmed to Newsfirst today by one of the committee members, Attorney at Law, Mahesh Kalugampitiya.
Speaking to Newsfirst, Attorney at Law Mahesh Kalugampitiya noted today that the report would be completed soon and would be submitted to the relevant minister. When questioned on whether there was any criminality involved in the matter, Kalugampitiya accepted that there wasn't. Accepting that he is affiliated to a political party, Kalugampitiya added that expert opinion had been sought in the process of compiling the report since the committee members were not knowledgeable on the workings of bond transactions.
There is no question of criminality in this matter. There are no laws that govern the treasury bond issue, unlike the stock market, which has a regulator. The fact that there is no criminality is known and has been known to everybody, including the Prime Minister and the three-member committee, and to all of us too. Which is why we have asked that on the basis that Mr. Mahendran has admitted to his mistake, i.e. he didn't let the rest of the primary dealers know of this increased requirement, which is why the rates went up. And it has cost this country approximately 35 billion rupees, money that we really can't afford. On the basis of his admission, that is why we have asked for Mr. Mahendran not to remain in office, but to leave office for good.
A tense situation erupted when wildlife officers attempted to seize 2 elephants which were used for polo tournaments in the Oruwala area in Athurugiriya.
Former Minister Chandana Katriyarachi also arrived at the scene during the raid conducted by the wildlife officials. The other wildlife officers released the elephant to former Minister Katriyarachi on the basis that the relevant documents would be submitted to court. However, the other elephants, who were said to belong to a person by the name of Ali Roshan in Maharagama, was taken into custody of wildlife authorities. Afterwards, a group including Venerable Magal Kande Sudanta Theru also arrived at the scene.
අපි මෙච්චර කල් මනුස්සකමට සැලකුවේ රාජකාරියක් කළාට අපිට
මේ අපේ පර්මිට් තියෙද්දිනේ මේ ගන්නෙ මේ
නෑ නෑ පර්මිට් ගලපෙන්නේ නෑ පර්මිට් තියෙනවා
බොරු කියන්න එපා නිකන් මේ බොරු කියන්න එපා
බොරු නෙමෙයි තියෙන පර්මිට් ඔයත් එක්ක කතා වැඩක් නෑ ඔයාගේ නෙමෙයි පර්මිට් එක
මගේ නෙමෙයි උනාට මගේ මහත්තයාගේ තාත්තගේ
අලිබාසුනට ගැහුවේ කවුද පොලිසිය කවුරුත් ගැහුවේ නෑ නෑ ගහලා තියෙනවා කවුද ගැහුවේ නෑ නෑ දැන් කම්ප්ලේන්ට් දාලා පොලිසියට දාන්න දෙන්නකෝ
ඉන්න ඉස්සරහින් ඉන්නේ
කොහොම අලිබාස බාවින්නේ
ආම්බරනේ
ගැහුවද ඈ ඉතින් පොළොට එකකට යන්න ඉතින් ඔබතුමාට තියෙන හයිය මොකද එහෙම මිනිස්සුන්ට සලකන්න පුළුවන් කම නැහැ. හිමින් කතා කරන්න මහත්තයා හරිද? මම ආමුදුරෙන් මේ කතා කරනවා. ආමුදුරෙන් නීති විරෝධී වැඩ නීති විරෝධී මොකද්ද? ඔබතුමාගේ
This is Chandana Katriyarachi's elephant. If we are being unfair, this would not be reported to the courts. You cannot take his elephant. Why are you trying to take an elephant that has a permit? I will take this to the courts. We are not scared of Ilangakun. Remember that. We were not even scared of Mahinda. We received information regarding the wrongful use of elephants in polo tournaments. So a group of our officials arrived at the scene to do our duty and conduct investigations into the claims. Accordingly, we seized one elephant. Another elephant was also seen. We will present a report to the courts on that elephant as well. It has been clearly indicated that if an animal is being handed over to a temple or a koval or a religious site, it is clearly indicated under the permit that the animal could only be used for religious purposes. Thereby, it needs to be investigated as to from whom the animals were obtained and what are the conditions mentioned under the permits obtained by them.
The Colombo Old Boys Association of Hindu College, Jaffna, organized a classical dance and musical festival in Colombo yesterday in line with 125th anniversary of the school.
The event, titled Geeta Niruthya Shirunkar, was held with the participation of the President of the OBA, M.N. Asogan, Vice President M.P. J. Sri Ranga, the Secretary, Vice Secretary and the Principal of Hindu College, Jaffna.
பிரித்தானிய ஆட்சி காலத்தில் இந்துக்கள் இந்து மதத்தை பின்பற்ற
Hindu leaders sacrificed their lands and developed this school in the past at a time when they were suppressed by colonial rule. At the advanced level examinations held last year, a student from Hindu College was ranked first island-wide in the math stream. We are preparing the students of Hindu College Jaffna to be successful in academics in the country.
பெற்றோர் இந்து கல்லூரிகளாக இன்று நிகழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கின்ற அதே நேரம் பழமை வாய்ந்த ஒரு இந்து கல்லூரியாகவும் நிகழ்ந்திருக்கிறது.
The event was made colourful by performances from students of Kalasuri Vasuki Jagadishwaran's Natya Kala Mandir, students from College L.D. Nirmala John's Nirmalanjali Academy of Bharatanatyam, Shanti Ganesha Raja's Niruthya Nartanalayam and Hindu College Jaffna also performed.
The All Island Pensioners Association requests the government to rectify areas in their payments under the 100-day program. They pointed out that a situation has dawned where the newly elected government has also failed to address the issues faced by around 550,000 people over several years.
The All Island Pensioners Association convened a press conference in Colombo today and noted that they have been hoodwinked continuously by the political leaders who promised to address their salary arrears.
They invited around 5,000 pensioners to temple trees. We took 7,000 with us. We prepared ourselves when we went there. The 2 million rupees extracted through every 50 rupees deducted from our salaries was presented in public. The then President Mahinda Rajapaksa got off the stage and announced that now we could accept that all our requests have been fulfilled. What we got was just 500 rupees. Through the budget proposal, the salary of a state employee was increased by 20%. Thereby, this government has granted a state employee an increment of 10,000 rupees. We get nothing. So now a state employee who was earning 20,000 rupees is now earning 34,000 rupees and we are not entitled to a cent. We are not prepared to be fooled yet again. We clearly state this. Issue a circular under the 100-day program to address our salary arrears by May this year. Please pay the pensioners as per the salary revision. If this fails, we will be forced to use all 2.2 million pensioners against the government in protest.
රජයට විරුද්ධව යෙදවීමට කටයුතු කරන්න අපට සිද්ධ වෙනවා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම.
Lanka Cricket has sought an opinion from the International Cricket Council regarding the administration of SLC being brought under an interim committee. When Sports First made inquiries today, the CEO of SLC, Ashley De Silva, said they are yet to receive a response from the ICC.
Sports Minister Navin Dissanayake appointed an interim committee to govern SLC on the 27th of March. The 9-member committee is headed by Siddharth Vettumani as interim president of SLC. In a letter addressed to the former SLC Secretary Nishantha Ranatunga, the CEO of the ICC, Dave Richardson, noted that the appointment of an interim committee had raised the risk of SLC's membership of the ICC being suspended or refused. The letter reads as follows, open extract. Where a government interferes in the administration of cricket by a member, including but not limited to interference in operational matters, the selection and management of teams, the appointment of coaches or support personnel, the executive board shall have the power to suspend or refuse to recognise that member. Furthermore, Richardson writes, of course, a full and proper investigation would need to be carried out, but any unjustified interference might expose Sri Lanka cricket to the possibility of having its membership suspended by the ICC board, which would have considerably damaging consequences, including the loss of the right for Sri Lanka cricket to participate in ICC's global events. End of extract. Speaking to Sports First, the Secretary of the SLC Interim Committee, Prakash Shafter, noted that SLC had communicated with the ICC and would await their feedback. The ICC's annual conference will commence in Barbados on the 22nd of June this year.
Staying in the game, Chanaka Velagadara has equalled the world record for the most economical 4-over spell in the history of T20 cricket.
Tamil Union in the domestic T20 League, Velagadara finished with the incredible figures of 4 wickets for 2 runs from 4 overs, including 2 maidens. The left-armer equals the record set by South African Chris Morris last year, who took 2 for 2 from 4 overs with 3 maidens, playing for the Highveld Lions against the Cape Cobras. When I play, I do not play for records. It is only after the match when I was told by someone that I realized a record had been set. In truth, I do not keep great hopes in records. Over the last 2 years, I was unable to play much due to my injuries. I believe I have got my rhythm as a fast bowler back. I believe that in the future, I will be able to bring stability to the team with my current bowling form.
News at 9. It was an absolute pleasure having you with us. I'm Stephanie Lazarus.
And I'm Shane Silva. Take care and good night.